Hello everyone, and welcome back to Hexen, where today we'll be playing through Hub 5, Necropolis, with the fighter on Titan difficulty getting all kills.
Are you strong enough to face your own masters?
And that line is actually related to the story, but I'll get back to that a little bit later. For now, there is a new enemy type we have to deal with called the Reaver. And Reavers are interesting. They deal pretty high damage with their fire projectiles. There is a lot of them, and we will just spend some time getting rid of all of them here. And it's gonna take a minute because there is 74 of them. And it might seem like there's an infinite amount because they do seem to be crawling out of the same graves over and over. But that's simply because they wake up in waves, and they wake up in those same areas over and over once you get close to their graves in there. So that's why it's pretty easy to assume that there is an infinite amount, but it only actually seems that way. You do need to be rather careful with it because due to the high amount of them, it's very easy to get overwhelmed, and the damage they deal is rather astronomical, so do be careful, but be aware that once you kill a certain amount, sometimes a whole bunch of them will start waking up around you as well, and they can start really overwhelming you, as you can see here. But if you just move around a little bit, more often than not you can deal with a lot of them without really having to worry. Now, because we're playing on the hardest difficulty, it added 10 more Reavers, I believe, compared to the lower difficulties. And unfortunately, 3 of them are tagged incorrectly. And what that means is, when a dormant enemy gets woken up, it actually is a group of dormant enemies that gets woken up usually. And in this case, there were 3 added that had the tag of 0, and there isn't actually a script that says wake up group 0. So unfortunately, at the end of this level, we will be missing 3 kills that are simply impossible to get. And I think this is the only level in the game where that's actually a problem. So fair enough, given that there isn't actually a kill count in this game, honestly. Not in the regular version of the game. They added it for GZDoom because I guess it was already there, but yeah, fair enough. It just simply wasn't there, and therefore probably very missable because of it. However, we're just going to take our time to kill everyone here. Now, I mentioned previously that Korax's line had to do with the story, and it doesn't really get explained that well in the PC version unless you read the manual, I think. But it does get explained in the animated cutscenes of the PlayStation 1 version, because in the PlayStation 1 version there was an intro for one, but there was also animated cutscenes for all the intermission screens that were voiced and everything, so that's pretty cool. But it also explains that the land of Hexen was basically split up into 3 different factions, who were led by the fighter Zedek and the cleric that also had a name, and also a mage of some sort that I have the name written down in my notes, but I have to look to the left to do that, and I cannot currently safely do that, so ignore that name part for now. But really, the most important part is that those leaders were eventually convinced to join Korax's team. They were given the power of undeath and therefore became Korax's servants. Which is the reason why we're trying to fix all this, because the playable characters were also part of those 3 different factions, like the fighter was part of the fighter faction and the mage of the mage faction and so forth. And we were just trying to save the day by getting rid of the terrible leaders, and that is what we are here to do in Hub 5, finally. Took a while to actually get there, but now we are here to save the day. There is 2 more Reavers remaining, so it is very possible that there's going to be a couple waking up there. Never mind. But it has also been 4 minutes, so the Ettins will start spawning in as well, but that's not really a problem. Now, there's a couple more things to mention about this graveyard. First of all, the secret level is directly opposite to this tomb right here. Pretty easy to find if you know where it is. It's just a portal right here. However, you can also see the holes of a door right here, and that is because if you enter one of the 3 tombs of the 3 different leaders, then it is going to close off the secret level forever. And that's something you have to be careful with, because the secret level has a lot of ammo and other power-ups as well, so it is useful to go there first. Plus, if you go to any of the other ones, you can't really do anything, so ignore this one for now, and ignore this tomb as well, plus the one I pointed out earlier till we even find it. And before we move on, I will just point out the graves as well, because most of them just say something like RIP, or they say nothing at all like this one. But there's a handful which say something along the lines of Brian P. Over here there is one that says Brian R. And further up ahead, there's a bigger one here that says Chris with a little skull on it. There's one that says Shane. And there is Mike with the upside down cross. Kevin with the little music note, and I believe there is one last one all the way over here that says Eric. And if you look at the info screen of the game and move forward 2 pages, you can find all of those names in the credits right here as well. So it's a fun little Easter egg that they added for the graveyard here. But for now, let us move on to the secret level, which is once again waiting for us over here. And get ready for action, because there is a lot of centaurs, a whole bunch of slaughters. There's chaos serpents all over the place and just all sorts of danger. And I'm just going to run in circles for a bit to get rid of a portion of them. Mostly I want to get rid of the chaos serpents that are in the sides here. Occasionally you might not see them because they'll have turned into pigs, and I'll get back to that in a second as well. But for now, mostly just going to focus on the ones in the middle. And once most of them are dead, I will go in a little bit of a side route here, because there is a secret area in this secret level, which is right here. But we can't currently do anything with it unless we use a porculator on a blocking centaur, so we can turn ourselves into a pig and crawl underneath this little vent area. And that brings us to a place with a lot of power-ups, but we can't pick up anything until we are no longer a pig. So let's touch this wall to open up a door right here and use a chaos device to instantly stop being a pig. That's actually one of the functions of the chaos device, which is not immediately obvious, but it's a good thing to know if you don't feel like waiting for a full minute or so, or however long it takes to stop being a pig. But this little secret area has all the mana in the world. It has a banishment device here, and also every piece of armor that you can actually wear. Except for the dragon skin bracers. But with that, that brings our armor class to 16, which is an unusually high amount for us. But if you do not have a porculator, there are 2 alternatives. First of all, there is a porculator at the end of this level. So you can also just go to the end of the level first and then come back later. But as I mentioned previously, some of these serpents have been turning into pigs as well. And the reason for that is because there is a wall on the side of that room right there, which is shooting out random projectiles. And one of the projectiles that that thing can shoot is the porculator projectile. So if you just wait long enough, you'll eventually see the egg fly towards you, and you'll know that you have to try and get hit by that. And it should turn you into a pig as well, provided that the other projectiles haven't killed you at that point. Now there's a bunch of spikes here as well, so generally the Chaos Serpents just end up dying by existing due to the spikes going up and down rather frequently as well. But occasionally you do have to put in a little bit of extra work to get rid of them. Now there's a couple ways to get to those top areas as well. First of all, you can use these statues right here to jump to the statue on the side and then try and make that jump. I'm going to try that one more time, but if it fails, I'll do it the regular way, I say as I try it one more time for good measure. There we go. If you jump properly, you can actually reach this, but there is an alternative way to reach it as well, which is the probably more intended way, by just pushing the window once you are in this place right here. It is a large stained glass window, and if you walk into it, it will push it aside, spin it around, and it allows you to get a few extra power-ups as well. Now, if you do not feel like jumping on top of statues, then an alternative way to get up top here is by simply attacking the wall, which will lower it like an elevator. And that way we can also progress through the rest of the level, because if we go to this torch, it will light up everything, but also open up the door to the exit of the level, which has a bunch of Slaughtars defending it. So be somewhat careful as you're trying to deal with the remaining enemies here. But after that, let's kill this one right here. We have all the kills in the level. We can get this porculator. And since we're still here and we cannot actually access this level again later, let us pick up as many power-ups as we can. Not use any of our quartz flasks if we don't have to. There is also a bunch of combined mana in these crushers as well if you still need some extra stuff. And somewhere along the line there is still a Etten that just respawned. He is up there. Hopefully we can attack him with our hammer so we don't have to climb up there again. There we go. And that is the end of that. That is the secret level of Hub 5 and also the last secret level of the game. So with that, let us move on. I'm just going to use the statues because I don't want to wait for the elevator. And let us leave this secret level and start going into the tombs of the leaders of the land. First of all, the tomb of Zedek. And that is the warrior. And one important thing about trying to get all kills is that you actually have to get the centaurs to walk all the way here to open up those side doors. Because only enemies can open up those side doors right there. And if you don't have an enemy to open it, then those doors are going to stay closed. And you could probably do some fancy stuff with some discs of repulsion, but it's not really the most fun thing in the world. They're all filled with regular centaurs, so it can take a second to destroy all of them, especially when you are the warrior. The cleric would just be able to shoot a couple Wraith Verge shots and everything would be dead already, probably. But the mage could probably struggle with this a little bit. Although at the same time, the ultimate weapon of the mage is more than capable of dealing with a long straight line of enemies right here, as is the case, as you can see. Now, as I mentioned previously, if we now go to the secret level door, it has become a closed door that says this door is barred from the inside. And there is nothing more we can do with that, unfortunately. So let us go into the first of three tombs, Zedek's tomb, which is immediately guarded by a Slaughtar. But fortunately we have hammers and we can easily dispose of that. There is some more Slaughtars on the sides here as well. Do be careful because they do get rather dangerous due to the sheer amount of them, but provided you take your time, should be okay. Now there is also some walls there. When we get closer to it, those walls are going to split up a bit, and I'm just going to stand over here for a second because that is going to lower like a crusher. And that's rather effective against these Slaughtars on the other side of this hallway. Now, if you wait for it to go back up, it does take a second before it starts crushing again, and with a second I mean many seconds. Also because we are the fighter, all of the parts of the ultimate weapon will be available in this level. Same for the other classes in the other two tombs. But let us move on to this wooden door. There is a bunch of regular centaurs here. No real danger at all. And with our axe we can dispose of all of these rather easily. There should be one more there. He is. It's kind of hard to tell in the dark, I suppose, but slowly but surely, they will all be destroyed. There's a banishment device for us over here, which we're almost certainly never going to use, but it does have its uses, I suppose, in a way. And I'll get back to that in a minute if I remember. But mostly we're here to press this button to open up a door. There's also these three squares, which we currently cannot interact with. But that button over there has opened up this hallway with a bunch of centaurs inside it. There is also two Slaughtars inside this hallway, so be careful as you move onwards because that one is going to attack you. But provided he doesn't block too much, they do die rather quickly. We can take care of the remaining ones with our axe. Pressing this button is going to reveal a mesh armor, but also open up all the doors to, more importantly, a couple of Slaughtars, which I do recommend dealing with first, before dealing with the many centaurs here. Now, the centaurs aren't going to wake up until they see you, so you can somewhat safely stand here and do this, but I don't think I recommend it. And I've fallen for this many times now. I need to stop doing that, because it honestly doesn't work that great. But once you get rid of these Slaughtars, you have dealt with the most dangerous thing. There is a lot of ammo in this level as well, so you can kind of just go wild with the sword if you so desire. Provided they don't block, it does kill them instantly, but it is fairly rare that they do not block this attack at some point during it. But do watch out because pressing the button that revealed the mesh armor has opened up that hallway over there as well, which has a couple more centaurs and Slaughtars as well. But for now, we're just going to focus up on the remaining enemies here. Might as well grab as much ammo as we can. And there's a couple of them over here that have likely not seen us just yet. I would like to get some of the crystal vials in the middle of this map just so I don't have to use too many of my quartz flasks, but at the same time it doesn't really matter too much. We are still on a pretty high amount of health right here, so I'm not too concerned. Once these walls start moving around again, it does mean that it's going to start crushing in a second, so do keep an eye out for that because it does happen from time to time. But moving on, let us kill some more Slaughtars as we did previously. And before you know it, we have a similar looking situation right here. With a similar hallway, but instead of a mesh armor, there is a porculator waiting for us up there. So if we press this button, it's going to do a similar thing, lower all the doors, reveal a couple of Slaughtars and Centaurs and the like. And let's try and destroy these before dealing with the regular Centaurs here. Which seems to be no problem. There we go. There is a button here as well. I will press that in a minute, but first, let's deal with the remaining Centaurs that are still alive, plus the respawned Ettins that have just appeared to enrich our lives. I might use a couple of my quartz flasks or maybe a mystic urn in a minute, just because the health is getting a little bit dire, but all in all I'm still not too concerned. Fortunately, these are all just regular Centaurs that we're dealing with and Ettins, so they don't deal too much damage. They only have melee attacks, so all in all, provided you're patient, you shouldn't take too much damage. And provided you just keep moving, because as long as you move, the Ettins aren't really going to be doing anything other than block you from time to time. When you do get blocked, it does get rather dicey from time to time as well, so a lot of things to watch out for. Alright, so now that that's all done, there is one more enemy remaining, but there is a switch here, and when we press it, it is going to reveal 3 spinning squares that line up to say star, coin, moon this time around. And that indicates what you have to do in this room right here. The ceiling is now going to lower, and this thing doesn't work great if you're trying to do this too quickly. If you try to make all of them spin at the same time, you might get into a situation where you have the code entirely typed in, but nothing happens, and then you just have to basically re-enter one of them and then see if the door opens that way and then go to the next one. You do have like 50 seconds before the ceiling crushes you, but it does get rather scary when it doesn't work with you, I suppose. Now, moving on, over there, we have the first of 3 leaders. It is Zedek, the fighter. He looks exactly like us, and he also has our ultimate weapon available to him as well, but he currently isn't doing anything. And the moment we walk towards him, the platform is going to raise and he'll get activated and start attacking us. On lower difficulties, you can actually just run behind him while everything's happening here, but on this difficulty, I couldn't seem to get that to work, so we're just not going to do that. I'm going to be using my Discs of Repulsion on this guy, who looks exactly like me, and try to just lure him into a wall once we see him. There we go. And just keep using Discs of Repulsion while we axe him to death. And it does make the fight a little cheesy. Simultaneously, this entire level is filled with Discs of Repulsion, so you might as well. Once that guy starts jumping around, it does get rather dicey because he's effectively just a human player, but with the strongest weapon that is available to the fighter, and that is rather just really, really good, and you can very easily die in like 1 or 2 hits, so I do recommend being very careful there. But we got the puzzle item, the 1 of 3. I'm not exactly sure if I showed off where to use those, but I'll show it off later in the end. When we actually have all 3 of them. But for now, let's replenish some of our Discs of Repulsion. They will make a comeback almost certainly in one of the other tombs. And for now, let us go to this tomb right here, which is the magic one, as you can see from how many Dark Bishops there are. This is going to lead to Menelkir's tomb, which is the mage, who also has the mage's ultimate weapon. When we try to walk towards this door, it's going to open a bit, and then it isn't. And then it'll say the portal has been sealed, and 8 buttons appear. And one of these is randomly selected to open up this door. And I'm just going to press 4 of them. And then go back to the door here. And it didn't actually open up the door either. It is completely random for as far as I can figure out which button actually opens the door, so If you press the wrong one, it's going to open up a wall with some Dark Bishops behind it. If you press 4 wrong ones, it just means you're going to have some more fun. That one this time opened up the door, so I'm just going to kill these remaining enemies right here. One of them got squished by a door, so that's fun. And let us now... I think there's a net in there. There is. Let us now press these remaining 3 buttons to lure out the remaining Dark Bishops that are hiding inside the walls. But after dealing with all of those, we can move on to the second level, Menelkir's Tomb. And this one is a bit more puzzly. If we press the wrong switch, it is going to spawn a couple of Ettins. And I'm just going to do that exactly once with every puzzle just to at least show it off. But if you press the right one, it is going to open up a door. This door leads to a whole bunch of stalkers. And the puzzles are, to my knowledge, not random. You just basically press the symbol that aligns with the one in the middle right here. I do like this one. This one I think is just kind of neat because once you figure it out, it makes you feel smart. But what it boils down to is that the shape of the room corresponds with the button that you have to press. So with this one, you have to press the one with a line through the circle, as you can see, and it'll lower it. Once again, if you press the wrong one, even when it's already been lowered, it will spawn a couple of Ettins. So do be careful with that. Same goes with these rooms in the middle, but it tends to open up to a room with enemies inside it, so I'd rather just deal with these enemies first before actually opening up the door and having to deal with both Ettins and those enemies at the same time. So let us press the correct switch, which leads us to a pit. This pit is interesting, has a couple of Dark Bishops inside it, and with a couple I mean just a buttload. And there's also an Ettin on the other side there, which might block your path and kill you that way, so be somewhat careful while dealing with this. And I think there's a Mystic Urn that we just may have picked up in front of this structure as well. So I'm just going to use one of those and kill the remaining Ettins before going back onto this magical bridge and pressing a wrong button. This one doesn't actually spawn Ettins. It instead spawns 2 Dark Bishops, which are easily taken care of, but I do like showing off the difference in enemy spawns. But let us press the one with the little square in the middle, as it aligns with this giant circular hole with a square in the middle as well. Grab a couple quartz flasks and move on to this room right here. Once again, some more Ettins. It does keep it exciting if you press the wrong one every time, because it is a pretty small room, and it does make the Ettins at least a little bit more dangerous that way as well. Press the N, and here is a room with a bunch of Chaos Serpents, so let's take our time here. Try not to use up all of your green mana while dealing with this, although ultimately it might not matter too much in the fight with the second leader Menelkir here, but I'll get to that in a minute. First of all, let's press the wrong switch again to get some more Ettins to spawn for fun. And after that, let us press the correct switch, which is the one with the X on it, which is right here. Not really an X, it's more of a plus, I suppose. And our final puzzle, I believe. First, once again, some more Ettins for good measure. And then let us press this one. And lowering that has, first of all, lowered a bunch of platforms in these sort of intermediate rooms, I guess I could call them. The ones that are in between the ones with the circle puzzles. And yeah, that spawned a couple power-ups for us to pick up. So I will just make a little circle to get the remaining things here. Let's press this wrong switch one more time for the sake of the many Ettins that do exist in this world. And let us press the one without anything on it other than a circle. That is going to reveal some buttons that we can press to reach the center area of this domain. But first, let us pick up the power-ups that have spawned after lowering these center things. It was mostly just mana and things, but also a couple quartz flasks and stuff. Considered using one, but might as well keep it. And let us randomly pick this one to press the button to lower the central area and go up there. Now, when you go up here, the mage, interestingly, is a little bit different from the other ones on this difficulty. One thing I may have forgotten to mention as well is that while with the other classes, on the lower difficulties, they don't actually wake up if you're behind them, but on this difficulty they seem to do so. I'm not sure if that's the same in Chocolate Hexen or if it isn't, but I didn't test it. But I can say with Chocolate Hexen that if you played on lower difficulties, it does also not activate them. This one is special, however, because he's never actually dormant. This one is always active, so if you use the kill all cheat, you'll actually kill this one as well. But interestingly, because this one doesn't wake up, you can use the classic strategy of hoping he doesn't get into a pain state, and then just do this. And yeah, he never saw us come, unfortunately. Now, killing him also lowers this second puzzle item, which looks a lot like his ultimate weapon, and also reveals this portal to leave this place. Might as well pick up a couple new flechettes, although I don't think I'll be using any more of them. And we're still missing an Etten somewhere here, probably. I think I heard him just now. I did hear an Etten, and usually when you run a circle, you can't really avoid him either. And there he is. But with that, we have 2 of 3 puzzle items and we can go on to the next one. It's a bit of an anticlimactic fight for sure, but it is a fun way of dealing with it. If he does use the... or rather, if he does get into a pain state, then it can get a little dicey because he does shoot those homing fireballs, but that's why I had the Disc of Repulsion equipped. Having some difficulty with words here today, but that's okay. We're getting through it. But yeah, if you use a Disc of Repulsion against its homing attack, it works the same as when that attack gets reflected when you use it yourself. It'll just home in on him and he dies, so no worries there at all. But let us go to the third tomb, which is the Tomb of Traductus, the Cleric. And to get there, you have to lower this particular tombstone right here. Press this switch, and that will give you access to the next area. Lower this with the switch right here. There's a bunch of Chaos Serpents guarding this place, so be somewhat careful. Just gonna equip my trusty quartz flask as per usual. And the elevator does go up pretty quickly, so be careful of that as well. And just really hope you don't die here, because it would just be really unfortunate. But let's use up our axe a little bit, because it's all a bunch of tight corridors here, and provided they cannot shoot you and you can hit them, makes the fights a little bit easier. Plus, this level is kind of odd, the one we're going towards in a minute, because it doesn't have ammo on it, which isn't ideal. So it's good to have some ammo available before you actually go in there, especially green mana is just very useful, because you're not going to get it back there, so be careful with that. Fortunately, there's plenty of ammo on the way there. When we pull that switch, it is going to open up the doorway into the Cleric's tomb, whose name I will not try to say again. It's just too long. So I will instead not bother. Try and kill a couple of Chaos Serpents right here. And I'm not too worried about health right here because there is a lot of Quartz Flasks in this level, but it can get rather dicey with the amount of damage you can take. And I did previously say I wasn't going to use any more flechettes probably, but I just remembered that I kind of do want to use a couple at least. So we'll see how many I actually have left. Makes it more interesting. For now, after killing the Chaos Serpents, let's kill a couple of mages on the way. I still have 25. I actually got them all back, so it's not too bad then. There is a bunch of disciples on the way there. We might as well use our sword here because... or our axe rather, because... yeah, once again, need to be a little careful with our green mana. There is a fake wall right here. That window, you can just walk through it. That is secret number 1 of 2 that's hiding in here. The other one, also not immediately obvious, is that this texture right here, the one on the bottom, is a little bit different than it is on this wall right here. So if we try and open that, opens up as a door, and there is a couple more dark bishops behind it, and also a couple more quartz flasks as well. But with those, we can move on. If we step onto the edge here, it is going to lower like an elevator. And this is kind of where I just want to throw down a couple of flechettes. Really just everything I have, because this time for realsies, I don't think I'm going to be using anymore. So I'm just going to throw them down. Hope I hit anything. If not, that's okay too. I used up 25 flechettes. Let's go jump down, because there is a large quantity of Dark Bishops right here immediately, and it can be rather easy to just take a lot of unnecessary damage because of it. But fortunately we got rid of a decent amount of them with our flechettes, and therefore we don't need to worry about it. Plus it does save a lot of ammo as well by killing them with flechettes, so that's good. Moving on, this door opens automatically, and there is a couple more Dark Bishops awaiting us, one on each side here as well. And there are 3 switches in this room that all open up a different room. First, let's deal with the one on the left, which is going to open up the door right here. This place has great lighting, so I'm just going to ignore that immediately. Let's just show it off slightly, but it lights up all the way upstairs. I'd rather just be able to see, so let's just use a torch, because we do have a bunch of those still available. And the lighting is, quite frankly, not great to look at for a long period of time. Picking up the shield is going to open up a bunch of places with Dark Bishops inside it. One thing I don't think mentioned either is with other enemies, when they're behind walls, you can use Discs of Repulsion to get them to infight with each other. But the Disciples don't actually seem to do that. I think they do take damage when you slam them into a wall with the Discs of Repulsion, but it doesn't really work super well to try and just get them to fight with each other, unfortunately, and that's why I haven't really done that here. Now, having dealt with that side, I will now go to the one on the right, which has opened up this door right here, with a couple more Dark Bishops and a staircase that's a little bit too low, but fortunately it does lower after a while. It is kind of nice to still have some flechettes here as well, because you can deal with these a little bit easier, but the axe is more than sufficient in dealing with them. But it can be rather irritating. Alternatively, you could just use an icon of the defender here, because when we kill a couple of Ettins to open up a couple of doors, we do get another icon of the defender at the end here. So if you still have a couple of those remaining, you might as well. Also, interesting note with the icon of the defender is using them against the leaders is a pretty effective way to win, because you cannot die, but especially as the mage, because it reflects everything back to them and they just end up killing themselves. But let's press this switch right here, which is going to open up the center room right here. This is also going to release the third of the leaders, which is the cleric, and the cleric has the Wraith Verge. And just like with other cleric related activities, you can just use Discs of Repulsion on the ghosts, and you can see how effective that is against your opponents right here. Doesn't seem to work as well on Chocolate Hexen, I will say, but it's not ineffective either. It just takes a couple more Discs of Repulsion. But genuinely, I wouldn't even recommend getting close to him, because it's just not worth the headache. Just throw a bunch of ghosts back at him and move on. Now, once you grab the puzzle item, it does open up this elevator right here, the one that we used to get back down. And I'm hoping the last remaining respawned Ettin probably is somewhere over here, because otherwise I'm gonna have to look for it. It does appear I'm gonna have to look for it, unfortunately. It can respawn in the horrifying light room, so I'm just gonna check that out first, provided that I don't hear it anywhere else, but I do think... There we go. So with that, we have all the kills in the Cleric Tomb as well. And we have all 3 puzzle items to reach the end of the game. So let us now press this switch to lower the elevator again. Wait for it to come down. Slowly but surely. You can take some time here to grab some extra ammo and such, but we're gonna get some extra ammo later as well. Although my green mana is effectively empty, so I do hope there is at least some green mana remaining in the upstairs world, because I'm pretty sure we picked it all up here. Because I would like to have at least a little bit for the enemies that still remain, but if not, that's okay too. It's just that it would make life a little easier. Otherwise, I could just use a Creator of Might, I suppose. But you know, if we can avoid using those, then why not? I guess there's still an Ettin here as well, so it's a good thing we at least circled through the land, making sure that everything was dead. That was the real reason, obviously. Anyway, I'm just going to use a Creator of Might, because why not? So, putting in every single one of the items. There is still a couple of Slaughtars waiting for us. He is guarding some combined mana, so if you kill one of them, you can just run forward to then kill the remaining ones. But, Crater of Might works. There's a couple of them in this place anyway, so might as well. We are missing 3 enemies as was predicted, because those 3 are still dormant, and we cannot do anything to them, unfortunately. Now over here, we have the Dark Crucible, the place that has the different skybox than the Bright Crucible, the secret level in Hub 1. I remembered it. But with that, we can move on this wobbly bridge with a whole bunch of corpses on it. Open the door, and then get to just the best thing in the game. Now, right here, there's a switch. If you try to pull it, nothing happens. But if you pull this switch, and then pull this switch, it spawns some mana. And if we do that again, it spawns some more mana. This is gonna get a little flashy as well. So if you're affected by that, do look away, because it gets a little messy after a bit. Now, if we do this 6 times, also every like 1 in 10 times, it's going to spawn a Crater of Might here. It's a 1 in 10 chance, that's really it. Now every 6 times we do this, it is going to spawn some Dark Bishops. So these are enemies which are pretty easily missable. Just gonna use our sword to kill them as well, because you get so much mana back from doing this over and over. Now that happens every 6 times. I will now just fast forward to having done this 20 times. Alright, so at 20 times, it is going to spawn a Mystic Urn in the middle. So that's pretty useful. Now I'm going to fast forward to having done this 40 times. Now at 40 times, it is going to spawn a whole bunch of Slaughtars into this room, which is rather dangerous if they manage to block their sword projectiles back at you, so be a little careful. But after that, it resets. So from this point on, if I do it another 20 times, it'll be a Mystic Urn, and another 20 times, it'll be a Slaughtar. So I'm not going to bother with it any more than that. I will just count that as respawning enemies as well. But it is the only respawning enemies in the level, which is interesting enough. No Ettins actually appear here that respawn, so that's kind of nice. Now let's open up this door and fight Korax, who has a variety of different attacks. First of all, he has some projectile attacks, which are easily avoided, but if you get hit by all of them, like all 6, you might just die, so watch out that doesn't happen. Occasionally, he'll shoot a lightning bolt up. And when he shoots a lightning bolt up, it means that he is activating one of a number of scripts that has been added to this level, which can do stuff like those fireballs or the spikes in the middle, can make all the lava suddenly engulf the room, can do all sorts of things. But I'm just going to ignore him for a little bit and use some discs of repulsion against this door, and then do the same thing on the other side right here, and occasionally also reflect his projectiles back at him. Also, watch out for the spikes, as obviously, but also watch out for these crushers, which can deal decent damage as well. Now once you attack Korax for a little bit with your sword, it should only take like 5 or 6 hits. He will teleport away, and then you will have to fight all the Ettins that are hiding in these little side rooms right here. And I'm using my sword because I'm not really worried about my ammo, because, well, quite frankly, I dropped millions of it in this room, so I don't really need to rush that. Plus, I can use some more discs of repulsion against these doors right here, the one on that side and the one on this side as well. And after having done that, let's just kill these remaining Ettins, which will open up the doors with the many centaurs inside it, which are all fighting each other because we use some discs of repulsion. So let us destroy these, and then move on to the other side. Once you've killed all the Ettins, it's going to open up this door in the middle. Also, if you use a banishment device on these enemies, then you're gonna be in trouble, because you can't actually make it back to the start of the level unless you use a banishment device or chaos device, either reflecting a banishment device on yourself or using a chaos device to get back to the start, because you can't really kill them otherwise unless you use some fancy disc of repulsion stuff. Now, once this door opens, Korax is going to start teleporting around and just do his thing. There's a door on this side and there is a door on this side, and only Korax can open these, and he does that at random. So I'm just going to first do that, just so some of the enemies in there infight with each other. But from this point on, it is going to be a matter of hoping that Korax opens the door. So I will just grab all the mana in the world and then stand in a safe spot right here, where I can at least look at the door, but I won't be able to actually take any damage from anything. Like right now, what Korax can do is teleport around, which can telefrag you, interestingly enough. And also he can summon some enemies and also do the same things he's already been doing so far. And we will see these summoned enemies in a bit. They are all ghost enemies of specific types, but we'll see those when we actually enter the other room. For now, it is just a matter of waiting for Korax to open the door. So I will just sit here and wait for that to happen. Did the door open? Oh yeah, it did. Alright, cool. Let us go in there and kill a bunch of Chaos Serpents. And the second set of doors also opened immediately, so that was actually really lucky. Because they are a bunch of Dark Bishops, so you can't even use fancy schmancy little tactics of using a bunch of discs of repulsion to kill those enemies. You will actually need to go in here and kill them. Unless you manage to slam them into the wall somehow, but it's just fairly unlikely that'll happen. Now that these enemies are dead, we can actually start focusing on killing Korax, which is nice. He dies honestly pretty quickly, so that's why I deliberately wait in that room, because it's very likely you'll kill him, and then you won't be able to go into the door anymore. So, just gonna hit him a few more times, and yeah, he's already dead. So, it's so easy to get into a situation where it's actually impossible to get all the kills because of it. And now we just have to deal with a couple of ghost enemies, like this ghost centaur. The moment he dies, he is just going to just disappear. He doesn't have a death animation or a corpse or anything. So that's going to happen to the remaining enemies here. But after that, it does appear we have all the kills that are possible to get in here. And with that, we have beaten the last boss of Hexen. You can jump into the flames here if you so desire. It doesn't do any damage. But ultimately, we can go into the portal and end the game. With a scream of agony, you are wrenched from this world into another. Every part of your body wreathed in mystic fire. When your vision clears, you find yourself standing in a great hall, filled with ghostly echoes and menacing shadows. In the distance, you can see a raised dais, and upon it the only source of light in this world. This can only be the Chaos Sphere, the source of Korax's power. With this, you can create worlds or destroy them. By rights of battle and conquest, it is yours, and with trembling hands you reach to grasp it. Perhaps now, a new player will join the cosmic game of power. Like the pawn who is promoted to queen, suddenly the very reaches of the board seem to be within your grasp. But there are other players mightier than you, and who can know their next moves? And that is the end of Hexen. The final text is a little slow, but if you click once, it'll skip to the next text immediately. And therefore it gets a little bit more dramatic of a reading. But that is Hexen. Also, if you beat the game as one of the other classes, the ending screen here will have the cleric or the mage instead of the fighter sitting there. But that was that. I hope you've all enjoyed it. It was honestly a lot of fun to play this game like this. It was a lot of research, probably more than I've ever put into anything, but it genuinely was a really good time for me. So I hope you all enjoyed it as well. Korax is an odd boss, but he is complicated, so that's kind of cool. But getting all kills in the level does kind of diminish the interestingness levels and the weird button puzzle at the start is just very unusual, but all in all, I don't mind this hub. It's a little smaller than the other ones for sure, but I still like it a lot. Plus, fighting against the AI-controlled, basically player characters, I think that's just a nice little creative touch as well. But all in all, I hope y'all enjoyed it. Next time we'll be playing something else, and I hope to see y'all there. Bye-bye. And kill all of the Chaos Serpents that were hiding inside that tiny little... Oh my god! I actually was not aware that could happen. He telefragged me. Fair enough.